Welcome to the 22nd in a series of shows on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization named Brookline its first age-friendly community in New England. This was a result of the work of the Select Board, town residents, the town departments, and the leadership of Brookline Can, a volunteer organization helping older adults and people of all ages. Today we have an interesting subject. We're going to explore the availability of marijuana in Brookline. Our guests are Dr. Swanee Jett, the Director of Health and Human Services, and Officer Michael Desario, who is the Elder Affairs Officer from the Brookline Police Department. We're going to start with Officer Desario and discuss some of the logistics and the opening, logistics of following up with the marijuana and issues for opening. And some of the ongoing issues that will occur and going forward. Officer Desario was assigned to the Community Service Division in January of 2016. He assists older adults receiving services and works very closely with the Brookline Senior Center. He appeared on episode 17 with Chief Lipson. Welcome back.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. So first of all, let's start with opening day. I think that was something people were looking. I was actually out of town at the time, so I read about it. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, well, this is a big event, right? I don't recall it as a big event afterwards, but let's take a look at it. I think we have a video, and we can play that and then get into it.
Sure.
Okay.
So as you know, on March 23rd of this year, Brookline opened a retail shop for recreational marijuana. So leading up to that date, there was a lot of immense pre-planning by the town, the citizens, the police department, and a plan was devised and look at the problems that may have arise
Sure.
From that opening. So that was a lot of planning went into place before that event happened.
Yeah, that's what I figured because things don't go off that well just like this.
Right. Like I said, there was months and months. Areas of concern were the parking and traffic and the crime in the area, and then the public impact opening a store like this. So with our partners, we came up with a pretty good plan. And went through with it on that day.
So, a few questions, just to get a feel for what occurred. There were a lot of police there that day.
There were.
I noticed.
Yeah. So that was kind of like a brainstorm with our partners, and the concern was traffic around the surrounding areas, obviously on the main roads, foot traffic, the peak times, morning and AM, commute and PM commute. Those are areas that we really wanted to focus on.
Okay.
So there was numerous police officers it's just around the area, monitoring foot traffic and vehicle traffic. So, and then we even had set up a temporary command post nearby, where officers were dispatched from, and kind of like a hub. And any large scale event that we have, we'd usually try to set up a command post.
Sure.
So
that probably wasn't visible on the...
No, that was not visible. But overall, we think it went very well. Right. From a police standpoint, we think it went very well. We felt like traffic was, it was not heavy, but it was probably a little more than usual. Right. Foot traffic obviously was a concern, and that was kind of limited. So we were very pleased with how the opening.
So who monitors the lines? That's not the police, right?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So a retail organization, that's their job. And this particular organization was very, very good about organization and let us know about the process and step by step. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and do you have any reporting or any information about the kinds of ages that were there in the opening day?
So we don't, but just from talking to a couple officers that were working the
Right.
the detailing in the area, it seems like it was a very broad range.
was.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like there was younger people and older people. So and it varied, but there seemed to be a very good mix, a very diverse mix of ages that were utilizing the service.
Yeah, were they diverse?
Yes,
Okay.
that as well.
Yeah.
You know, it being the first one in the Boston area, you know, you had a bunch of communities, not only people in Brookline utilizing, but surrounding communities that would come and
Take the tea.
Yeah, take the tea. There was a lot of the ride sharing.
Sure.
So
Oh, really?
yeah, there was a lot of ride sharing.
No, that's difficult in
yeah.
that area. Just
So,
stopping.
but I will say that you know, we kind of planned for that. We had a designated drop-off area
Right.
and pickup area, and we had a spot for those who use the medical. They have medical cards, and we had a special lot
Okay.
for them. You know, so it went.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
And and otherwise, there's no parking or anything. There's like you wouldn't want it. I don't think.
Yeah, they there's not a lot of in this particular area. There's not a lot of parking that they have, so
Right.
they were basically, you know, their customers had to use street parking and
Okay.
stuff like that, and we encouraged them with the retail partner to use public transportation and stuff like that.
Great. Well, we passed opening day,
We did.
and now we're not well into, but we've been going for what is it, a couple months now, I guess.
Yeah,
So
a couple months.
So can we talk a little more about in ongoing time and the question of the law that we're dealing with? You are the law.
Yep,
And you
well, yeah.
You enforce the law.
Part of it,
You
yes.
enforce the law. Okay. So you meaning your department.
Correct.
But so what is the law?
So yeah, I mean that's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, whenever we have a change like this is a fairly big change.
Right.
Basically, adults 21 years and older are allowed to possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana or 5 grams of marijuana concentrate. Those who are under 21 but older than 18, they are not allowed to possess, consume any of the products, and that's a civil offense. Those under 18, there's a different offense and violation, and they are fined, summons to court, and a parent or guardian is notified.
Oh, okay.
So within that, there are stipulations. If you have a medical marijuana card, the amounts change a little bit. You're able to possess 10 ounces or 1.5 ounces of marijuana concentrate. And in very rare circumstances, doctors may approve more than 10 ounces for a 60-day supply.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at right now. But for adults 21 and over, it's 1 ounce or 5 grams of marijuana concentrate.
Okay. And that's it's probably similar to, well, I guess it's not. We're going to leave alcohol out of it. Because
Well, there are some similars.
I see some analogies, but my sense is it's something different. It's not.
It is, but it's not. Sometimes it is compared to, because there are some interesting correlations. For example, the operating under the influence.
Okay, impairment.
Yeah, so impairment, operating on the influence of alcohol and drugs, shares the same chapter and section. So
Okay.
it's kind of treated the same in some ways, and there are some differences.
Yeah. Did you have any special training in dealing with that kind of potential
So-
driving issues?
We have a yearly update, legal update, and this was a big part of our legal update this year and even last year. We were preparing last year and even years prior when it was medical.
Right.
So, but this was very kind of more focused on the law itself and the penalties and and there's a learning curve there for officers. It's going to, like any new law, a new adjustment, there's going to be some variations, and there's going to be some, until we get caught up.
Yeah, of
You know
course,
what I
it's
mean?
brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not going to wait for you.
Correct. But I think overall, I think we're prepared, and I think we're ready.
That's great. That was my sense. I walked over there and I talked to people, and the sense is that, gee, this is just becoming an ordinary thing. That the police, it's the same kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you expect the police to know about it, but that's it. Is there so your sense is right now that we're, as far as from a law enforcement point of view, that we're doing well? I mean, is there any issues?
We've had we've had a couple of calls for smoking marijuana in public,
Oh, really?
which is illegal. You're
Right.
not allowed to smoke or consume any of the marijuana products in public.
Okay.
So that's important, and I think that's part of kind of educating the public on the law as well. So we've had some of that around town, not particularly in that area,
Sure.
but around town.
Right.
And we've had to advise a lot of parties on the law.
Yeah. You might not know this, but do you know if you've had any like emergency calls or anything related to?
I
marijuana?
don't know that.
Yeah. Be more
Again, it's
hospital.
still early. We're still tracking a lot of the statistics and kind of following how it goes. So it's early.
Yeah, and I asked the question, but I do know the fire department is the one that would be more for 911 or anything like
Yeah.
that, for medical.
Well, we have a little bit.
little,
Yeah,
yeah.
we do a little bit of that, but.
Okay. And what about, just going there, as far as older adults are concerned, is there any parking for people who have disabilities and have plates that, for instance, that
Well,
are...
they're always the handicap spots if,
Oh,
they
they're
have,
there?
if they have the placard.
Okay.
If they do have a medical marijuana card, there is a spot,
The special parking.
a special parking lot for that.
Yeah.
But we encourage public transportation if they're able, to utilize that.
So is there, have you gotten any kind of reaction from people asking for more? So in other words, is there anything else that we could be doing that would change, that would improve the implementation? Or any comments that you've gotten, feedback?
So I would say, this is a new thing, and we're still trying to, kind of figure it out and how to do. But as far as safety goes,
Right.
I mean, as always, we remind the public, always be aware of where you are. Use caution and at night, and one of the things that we're trying to get across is. A lot of times, we've only had 2 cases of issues with people leaving, and the concern was a lot of people were going to be getting jumped for their
Yeah, right.
for their marijuana.
Yeah, because when you walk past in the streets, you see people with these little white bags walking along.
So the weight package is interesting. We're often asking to people put it in a different container,
Right.
or obviously if it's in a vehicle, it has to be locked. Just to be aware, of your surroundings.
Well, I think that's
Yeah.
That's good advice, certainly for older adults, but
Absolutely.
probably for everybody, but certainly for older adults. I think
Yeah.
if they're walking along, they might be susceptible to someone. Now, the question of future outlets, because we do know there are going to be more. I mean, as far as the public have seen, unless something changes, there's going to be, and they're going to be near the T. They're going to be more crowded areas.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about. I know that there has been some talk and some documentation and some things about more retail shops opening up. About exact locations, I'm not really sure.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think this is that is not going to be the only one. I would think down the line you're probably going to be seeing a little bit more, and maybe those will be more accessible to tees or maybe walking and those type of.
Okay, now we're reaching the end, but of the first session, Is there anything else you want to make sure you get across, or?
No, I just think it's important to know the law. It's important to know what your rights are, and to know, and we encourage, if you have questions, to call us on our emergency number. If you have questions, if you see a violation and you'd like to report it, we encourage you to call the NERD emergency number. There's also on mass.gov, there is a Cannabis Control Commission.
Right.
And there's some really good information on that website in regards to the law. And so we encourage you to visit the mass.gov website for that.
Great. Well, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to hear about opening day went well, and that we're still in reasonable control and reasonable order. I want to move on to the discussion of health and the people issues. So we're going to bring in, thank you, and we're going to bring in Dr. Swani Jett, the Director of the Health and Human Services Department, and see if we can get a little more into marijuana itself. So please hang around, and we'll see what happens.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Jett is a national leader in public health. He's a past president of the National Association of County and City Health Officials, and he received his doctorate at the University of Kentucky in public health with an emphasis on preventive medicine. I think today we're going to continue our discussion that we've begun before on the marijuana in Brookline. But now we'll focus a little bit more, as we said, on on health and people. Welcome, Dr. Jett.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So I've heard that it's open fine, and we've had a successful opening, and it's for sale. Mm-hmm. What about the impact on people, on the environment, on us around us, and especially on older adults? Because I have a small interest in that.
So, it's interesting. In Colorado, the state health department actually had a very ambitious and robust campaign, alarming the community, educating the community about the risk of marijuana. That has not happened in Massachusetts.
Right.
In a time where research is still unknown, to me, we are not practicing precautionary principle and protecting the community overall, and alarming the community of the risks, not only for all adults, but for the old in our population as well as the youth.
Right.
Say, for instance, some of the latest statistics that just came out was that Boston Children's Hospital, Dr. Sharon Levy did a study, and she noticed that a lot of kids between 13 and 18, 27% said they experienced hallucinations from using marijuana. About 13% experienced some type of paranoia or anxiety, and 42% experienced some type of psychotic episode. So, what that correlation means for me and older adults is that, number one, what's on the market today, there's no warning label.
Right. So
you don't know what you possibly ingested. And right. There's a difference between smoking marijuana and an edible.
Okay.
So, say for instance, in San Diego County, in 2008, there was 1,000 ER visits from cannabis usage. 2014, there was approximately 10,300 ER visits. So that's an 830% increase in ER visits from cannabis usage.
So was there increased use to go with that? I mean,
there is increased use, increased THC levels in the product. What people smoked in the 60s and the 70s, the potency levels are totally different nowadays. Right. A lot of episodes that's happened in hospitals, people are eating an edible.
Right.
It don't really understand the THC level that might be in it.
Right.
They don't have an effect, so they eat 2 or 3 in a row.
Wow.
And now,
not that I know, but wow.
Yeah, and now they have GI, or some other symptom
right.
in relation to ingestion. So, we have to do a better job, not only as a community, but as a state, in educating people about the appropriate usage
Right.
of recreational marijuana, along with medical.
Right. And we spent years, as I recall, I have the decades behind me, and I recall in alcohol, for instance, people who were pregnant drank all the time, and there were all sorts of effects and things that were really bad
Right.
until we discovered and learned and changed habits and changed the culture. And alcohol still exists, but there's a whole set of situations in which it's not used, especially age, especially things like that.
Yeah.
But it took a long time for that. You're saying that we're at the early stages of learning, or are
You know-
do we at least have information?
So the interesting thing, we are still learning information, but yet we have begun to legalize marijuana in such a way that we know, for instance, Brookline banned recently e-cigarettes flavored in menthol
Right,
because they assumed that kids were getting it from the retail stores.
right,
But actually, marijuana usage is higher in Brookline schools. And why is that? Some of it is social acceptability. Some of it is access. So you can't really do a lot of, you can purchase e-cigarettes and tobacco online. A youth can do it,
right,
but you can't purchase marijuana. So how is consumption rates increasing among the youth?
right.
So that means that there is another mechanism of access that's happening. So before we begin to implement marijuana usage in the community, retail, and the selling of it, we probably should have had a campaign to really find out the anecdotal usage, not only just in the school system, but the overall community. So if the amount of usage increases, we know that we have a trend that we need to deal with. But we haven't effectively done anything in terms of education or prevention. So, I have grave concerns because now we haven't properly tracked how people are going to access it. We have an idea with tobacco.
Right.
So we know that, they might get certain percentage from retail, but they probably get a large percentage online.
Sure.
How are the youth accessing marijuana?
Yeah.
Now, let's move to the other phase. We're talking about the impact on older adults.
So that's a question of data collection.
That's to
Of
me.
data, which really sounds important to me. I mean,
It's
how do you do
essential.
anything unless you know?
Somehow before we implemented marijuana, establishments, we should have really did the research at the local level on the impact. We should have had a great understanding of medical usage and how it's impacting the community. We should know the impact of different strands and what diseases it does help with and doesn't, so we know the benefits of it.
Right. Would you expect some of the money from taxes and things to go towards that at this point, towards belated research and belated
Well,
understanding of?
I would hope so. But again, we're talking about a system put in place that's going to happen after the fact.
Yeah, right.
So we implemented marijuana, but we have no mechanism in place to prevent it to getting access to youth.
We don't want the problems.
We have no way to really restrict overusage because you can go to a marijuana store 2 or 3 times throughout the day. We don't restrict the amount of times you can go. We restrict the amount you can receive.
Oh, they don't record that and have. I
you-
I would think electronically.
You can walk down to any operation right now. Within 30 minutes, go back and buy some more.
Wow.
So
I never even imagined that was.
what's to stop the dose response ratio
Right.
to ingestion?
Right.
And so what's to stop somebody from eating too much of edibles?
Right.
What's to stop somebody from having access to alcohol
Right. Same time. Yeah.
and marijuana,
Sure.
which is going to make them impaired to drive?
Right.
But how do we know how that impacts the body? Do we have any type of mechanism to test somebody before they drive?
Well, they're working on that again.
They're working on that.
Belated. Again,
but
belated.
it's after the fact,
Right.
after somebody
Right.
has crashed.
Absolutely.
It's almost like we're going to jump off the cliff, and then we're going to understand the impact
Not
of how
why,
far
right.
and why did we jump off the cliff,
Right.
and will it hurt?
Right.
But that's kind of doing it backwards.
Yeah. I won't get into the other areas in which that's occurred. We talked about that another time. But,
Yeah.
but you were going to get, I'm sorry, you were going to get into older adults. And it was
So,
really,
interesting thing. So, the health department, we put out a CBD advisory. So let's talk about CBDs. So
CBD is
cannabinoids,
THC and CBD.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we have a lot of products being sold in Brookline,
Right.
but we have no mechanism to know if it's being used appropriately, being properly tested, where the product comes from.
This is all CBD.
This is all CBD. So I put out an advisory to begin to talk to retail sellers and pull the items that can't produce the proper appropriate paperwork from the shelves. What I'm noticing that some of the CBDs have THC.
I didn't know that.
Some of the CBDs do have some type of ability to make a person high.
Yeah.
So I think the important aspect is people think that using the CBD probably heals some type of, my elbow hurt today or arthritis or some other chronic disease they may have.
Right.
But there really isn't much research on that either.
Right.
And so now it's the prediction that CBD usage will be higher than marijuana. And yet we don't know the impact on the body either.
So actually, older adults are more likely to use CBD for arthritis. I mean, I know the arthritis, various
For
other
any
issues.
type of ailment, they actually selling it like in biscuits to help your dog.
Sure.
If your dog has some type of illness. So that's another aspect that we need to be concerned with.
Right.
For adults and older adults, because what has happened to the usage of marijuana and the potency of it, what people used in the 70s is not what is being sold in 2019.
Right.
So I would caution anybody, number one, consult with your doctor.
Right.
He probably would tell you, don't use this and drink alcohol
Right.
or take blood thinners or any type of chronic disease you might have you taking medication for. You probably don't want to mix the two
Right.
because you don't know the impact on the body. All the research is still fresh. Harvard and MIT recently got a grant for $9 million to study the impacts on diseases. So that's going to
They're
be
just starting. Do you know how long that study is? Is that a 2-year?
Yeah, I don't know how long the study will be, but hopefully,
Probably not defined yet.
we probably need more of, and for ethical, unethical reasons, we probably need more of clinical trials to see actually what the impact is on the body. But how do you test that?
Right.
I know there are research studies that's out there that say, okay, what if I stop somebody from using for 30 days and then test them after 30 days and, kind of identify what the impacts are on the body, what's the receptors.
Right.
Now, here's the things we do know that marijuana can do to somebody. And I have witnessed this myself. So let's say you start using at a young age. You are more addictive to continue to use the rest of your life. Right now in Brookline High School, I mentioned earlier that more kids say they will have a lifetime usage, just like 26% say that they would use their lifetime. Middle school, it's only 3%.
So you got to get to the schools.
So you really got to get to the schools.
Right.
But let's think about in terms of when we think about marijuana usage, people nowadays are probably be more receptive to be addicted because of the high potency level.
Okay.
So recently there was a person, a parent wrote an article in USA Today that talked about a son eating edibles. And because of the potency level of the edible, became addicted to it and wanted to take his life and eventually committed suicide. Now think about somebody that's, before people shared marijuana.
Right.
They passed the joint from one
Sure.
person to another.
Divided a cookie away. It's like-
Nowadays, people are going home and smoking alone. So now that's another opportunity to increase potency that they are now ingesting never before. And the level of THC is possibly higher. What if they depressed already?
Right.
So
So we're getting towards the end. So I was going to ask you what's important, what should be, you've hit them all. and not only that, but you've introduced the questions
Right.
that I think are really important. You've introduced the questions of precautionary warnings, the questions of study, the questions of impact, change in impact over time.
Right.
Each of these things, we could go on and on. I wouldn't mind actually if we had more
right,
information, but it's at the very beginning. But can you provide information as it goes, as we go along from the Health and Human Services? Will we be able to get, at least keep informed as things happen?
So one of the things that we are going to, so first we have a video out that's, that we are now using the school system to educate kids.
Oh, great.
It was named Marijuana Roadshow because they declare a lot of road shows in the
Yeah, right,
schools.
right.
And so it really depicts the different tools, the different devices that people can use and the different, aspects of marijuana. What not to use.
Right.
Going based on precautionary principle, I understand that people are using it for epilepsy and other types of diseases.
Yeah, right.
I'm more concerned about the recreational use, but also the medical use, because we don't have the data sufficient enough
Right.
to say the impacts on the body. So from my perspective, I would just say don't use it. If you do, make sure you go to a certified business establishment that sells
Right.
it.
Right.
Make sure you consult with your doctor based on usage.
Absolutely.
Be careful on people making edibles in their home,
Right. Wow.
because you also can grow these
It could
plants.
be anything then, right?
in
Yeah,
your
you're allowed to
home.
grow plants. Yeah, that's a whole other.
That's the other aspect as well.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
could have a show on that.
yeah, we could. And I would end by saying, if you do have any side effects,
Right.
go to the ER right away.
Okay.
And on the last note, because I'm having a hard time with the marijuana passage, is that for so many years it criminalized African American communities,
Right.
and yet
Oh, yeah.
now people they probably are middle aged and older,
Right.
are now out of jail,
Right.
hopefully,
Right.
but they cannot work in the marijuana establishment. So you already come out of prison, released with a felony. You can't get a job no other place, but you went to prison for this particular thing. Now it's legal. And there's no way for you to contribute back to society in this manner in which it criminalized a sector of the community.
Now that is a show.
So,
Yeah. That's a show and also something to leave us with. Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. We've run out of time.
No.
But,
Thanks
thank
for
you,
having
Dr.
me today.
Jett, and I'll thank Officer Desario's office. And remember, everybody, it'll be rebroadcast at various times in the next few weeks, and it's available on Facebook, Twitter, and the website for Brookline Can. So, thank you.
Thank you.